I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, as well as AD Drew for your Sunday edition of episode 704. Welcome to episode 704 Inside the HBCU Sports Lab podcast and show covering the sporting HBCU for all things HBCU sports for institutions large or small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and AD Drew. We're filming from our home studios as we get you ready for a great show. With that being said, I think we got a little footage for the post-game down there between Jackson State and Southern Miss. Let's go ahead and play that before we bring everybody on stage.
And I thought we came out and played pretty good the first half, gave ourselves a chance to win. But hats off to Coach Huff and that football team. They came out in the second half, found a way to separate. Same deal. I got to get this clean up with these penalties. I think we had 12 penalties tonight, and just guys out of character with some of the false starts, a couple offsides that extended drives. So we got to be better there. So we'll get back at it. We got the WC Gordon Classic coming up this week. Tuskegee coming to town, so we just got to get back at it and go to work.
Questions? Coach Charles Bishop, inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Although a loss, but from a physicality standpoint, did you guys meet the moment?
Yeah, like I said, they did. That's the team that we expected to see, in Southern Miss. We knew we had some similar personnel to them. Like I said, this game was all about us again, like last week with the penalties. Extending drives, the offense will get something going positive, and we'll have a false start or something going back in the wrong direction. But like I said, I'm pleased with them, but we just got to get that stuff cleaned up with these penalties right now.
Coach?
So we bring everybody on. Let me say today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency. THG Agency is the company that provides sporting, education, consulting, and data analytics. I want to give a shout out to CIAA. They were getting it done yesterday. Mm-hmm. They were getting it done, which included the Johnson C. Smith win over Valdosta, top 25 team. A lot of folks had their eyes on that game and wanted to check it out, and it worked out for the Golden Bulls as they got it done in terms of that matchup. So we'll talk more details about the D2, if you would, on Tuesday when we release the poll rankings. But just felt good about that, so I wanted to give the CIAA a note for that 28-16 win. It was very solid, wasn't close at all in terms of that matchup. Also want to give a shout out to the CIAA getting that needed win over the SIEC, Livingston-Allen. Livingston defeated Allen 28-17 in terms of that matchup. So now it's tied 3-3, which means it's going to go to the final game. And for us in the media, that's the perfect way that we like it, that it goes down to the final game. That's almost like a final seven. And you know what they say about that seventh game, whether it's baseball or basketball, it gets very interesting. This Elizabeth City State actually had a great performance in terms of that, and they had a lead at halftime that was 20-10. Hampton did fight back. Credit, they win the game 27-7, so I want to actually give some credit there. I also had Virginia State that had Norfolk State, everything except on a rope. But shout out to Michael Vick. He does get his first win, and it is a rivalry game. It has to happen in overtime where they get a field goal to win 34-31. Virginia State had the game early in halftime, showing some control, 16-7. They go up actually after that, scoring another touchdown in terms of making it, 23-10 at the end of the third. But Norfolk State scores 21 points in the fourth quarter to make it interesting. Virginia State actually scored 8 to take the lead after Norfolk State took the lead. So it goes down 31 to 24. Norfolk State comes back to score to force it to overtime, getting a touchdown late in the game, 31-31, and then a field goal of 29 yards to win in overtime, 34-31. So a lot of good things from the CIAA. But let's get back to it in terms of the major divisions. What kind of games stood out to you and why? What was interesting? We'll actually break down the top 7 scores officially in segment 2. We'll release our major division poll and get your thoughts on that as well in the third segment. And then we'll look forward and project in terms of some games that you want to watch. But we'll start with you, Charles. What was some big scores for you, whether it's on the win or loss side? You can even go with one or both if you want.
Oh no, I think obviously that Johnson C. Smith win over Valdosta State, that one jumps out for me. Also Alabama State going on the road, getting it done down there in Baton Rouge. I think that's huge. That's a huge data point. Alabama State absolutely turning heads around the HBCU stratosphere in terms of what they've been able to do the first couple of weeks they've been out there on the field.
I agree a lot with you. Let's go to you, Mike. What are your thoughts in terms of the top? What stood out to you in terms of some big scores?
Well, I mean, first of all, rental cars, man. I've had bad luck with rental cars 3 times this year. You buy a rental car, you want it to take you from point A to point B. You want to push the ignition and put the key in, and it starts. How simple is that? That has not happened. That has not happened 3 times as much as anyway. I'm sorry, I digress. As far as scores that
Like
stand
you had a
out,
late night, Mike.
yes, I did. So I saw that Delaware State game. I was impressed with Delaware State.
Yeah,
I was
good one.
impressed. I thought I would. Alabama State going down, I think, is a CB. I thought that they could do it, but not like that. Now Southern had turnover problems, but still not like that, not to that degree. Congratulations to Coach Vic. He got one in the saddle. But I got to say, but the one that stands out to me, really, to be honest, is Delaware State. Out of all of the scores, I did not expect him to come out with that victory. There are a few more, but that one stands out along with the dominance. The dominance. Oh, kudos to Alabama A&M. That game, we were watching that one as well. Alabama A&M. They pulled out when they pulled away. Then which McGall said not too fast. And then Alabama A&M pulls away. I think it was 31-21. So, but kudos to Alabama State and Delaware State.
Shout out to Lee Corso with the not so fast going, Mike, as he retired and did his last game last week. Nice little touch you did there. I do like the fact that you shouted out Delaware State. That was a good one. When you talk about Southern, and we'll break those scores down a little bit. But let me go to 80 Drew to get his thoughts on the big matchups this weekend.
Y'all missed all the action on the lower levels, Charles, Mike, and Dr. Cavil. But I'll start on the Division I level. Who would think that we will be talking about Delaware State looking better than Norfolk State back in June, July, and August when we were doing all of our
say that, preach.
No one expected Delaware State to look good because even in their loss last week, Delaware State, in my opinion, looked better than Norfolk State did in their loss. Now,
I agree with you.
Going to the Division II level, and I've got to be careful because I've got to save some of this material for my show tonight, BCSC and Sports Rap with AD and Brian Fulford, 6 o'clock Eastern, right here on the Black College Sports Network. But I am going to give you a couple.
Nice plug.
Number one, there's a rule being put. Say again. What you say, Mike?
I said, that's kind of slick. You gonna slip that in? That was sweet.
There's a rule being pushed that Clark Atlanta and Florida Memorial can no longer play each other in football unless it's in a dome, because this game was started by hour and 41-minute weather delay. We all know what happened last year where we did not get a victor in the game, and this game was very close to being called where these two teams never took the field on yesterday because
Wow.
of that delay and because of the hard out Florida Memorial had. So we almost did not get the game on yesterday. That's number
That's a
one.
good one.
Number two, Lincoln, Missouri, y'all. My the one of the HBCUs from my home state. They got a victory over somebody not named Lincoln themselves, as in Lincoln of California or Lincoln of PA, as they defeated Lane College on yesterday. I am going to give y'all this one. Lincoln, for the first time since 2019, defeated somebody else not named Lincoln. How about this? For the first, Lincoln defeated Lane for the first time since 2018. 2018 was also the last time that Lincoln of Missouri was over 500, as they are currently 2-0. And the last one, Dr. Cavil and fellas, Lincoln, Missouri has won consecutive games for the first time since 2013.
Nice. We got the stat of the day with Drew. He said he's going to use some
That's
Division
some
2.
data points. I like that.
Yeah. So I say the Johnson C. Valdosta State for my show.
Good stuff. Great updates in terms of the Division 2. Like I said, I opened it up with a shout out to CIAA, but I like this shout out to Lincoln, Missouri. Well deserved. Shout out to them 2-0, getting off the mat as they've struggled over the years. They're well on their way.
Never had a 500 season in the rebirth.
Yeah. Wow. That's a statement and a half. Let me go over a couple of breakdowns of what you said there in terms of Delaware State. For those that didn't catch it, I know they had the final score with Delaware State winning 37-32. Talking about delays, they had a delay in that game. Mike Prairie doesn't seem to be able to play out without a delay. First, we thought it was maybe a good omen. Now we finding out maybe it wasn't, as they take the L after fighting back and actually taking the lead after not playing very well in the first half. They did well, and then a crucial fumble where it looked like they might have a chance at a winning drive closes out the game, allowing UT Rio Grande Valley to get it done. But in terms of the Delaware State game, the Dukes get the first touchdown. Delaware State answers, and then the Dukes return with the answer in terms of that matchup. So a lot going on there, going back and forth in that matchup. And then Albany, as they also like to call them, scores in the second quarter to take a lead at halftime. But Delaware State bounces back, finds some life as they shut them out in the third and score 10 themselves. And then they score late in that game in the final quarter, outscoring the Great Danes 13-12 in the fourth quarter to win 37-32 after the Great Danes took a 32-31 lead. So shout out to Coach Jackson. As y'all said earlier, got the win there. A lot of momentum in that game in terms of what that looks like. The other one that Charles pointed out, I think a lot of people in the SWAC had their eyes on this game, as it was a litmus test for some to see what it looked like in terms of Alabama State getting it done against Southern. Alabama State just was able to get 2 field goals, one in the first, one in the second quarter, but they did take a 6-0 lead into the halftime based on that. Then they bust out in the third quarter and put up 17 points, while Southern was only able to score the 7 points they scored for the game. And then they scored a final touchdown in the fourth quarter to win 30-7. So Body throws 2 touchdowns to lead Alabama State past Southern. So it's going to be interesting to see what that means for the poll ranking for Southern and Alabama State, for that matter. We will unveil that in the third segment, so keep your eyes on that. We told you about UT Grand Valley getting it done, 27-21. So those were some of the intriguing scores that stood out for me. Let's take our first break and come back on the other side. We'll get into the top 7 scores and see what the teams did in the top 7. Get your thoughts in terms of those particular matchups, and then we'll move along. So let's take our first break, come back on the other side, and get your thoughts on the top 7.
ESPN Events presents Red Lobster Band of the Year, a title reserved for elite HBCU marching bands. A season-long competition that culminates in Atlanta on Friday, December 12th. Drum majors, percussion, drill, auxiliaries, musicality. All aspects will be examined by the toughest judges in the world of college bands. 4 will qualify for the big stage, where national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for rankings updates throughout the season. And join us in Atlanta on December 12th. For event and ticket information, visit bandoftheyear.com.
Compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson, Charles Bishop, and AD Drew. Let's get into these top 7 of the major division scores from this past weekend. As we had some big games go down, a lot of tough matchups between FBS programs and FCS programs. So as expected, some teams took it to the chin. But talking about those South Carolina State Bulldogs, we'll give you an update and let you know what they did as they ranked number 2. But let's start out with the number 1 ranked team. As we look at last week's poll, Southern was ranked 7th, as you see. Howard Bison, number 6. At number 5, you had Tennessee State Tigers. At number 4, you had the Prairie A&M Panthers. At number 3, you had North Carolina Central Eagles. At number 2, you had South Carolina State Bulldogs. And you had Jackson State Tigers that are number 1, and they continue to get it done going back to last year. I think they've won, 8 as they are at the top of the poll in terms of going back to last season. We'll see if they can continue to hold on to that number 1 spot. They took a tough loss this weekend, but let's get into that loss and score on from the next slide there, where you had Jackson State. They went down to Southern Miss. They lost 35-7 in that matchup. So Jackson State goes to 1-1. Southern Miss is also 1-1.
Score. The score actually in that one, Doc, was actually 38-20.
38-20, 38-20 into that matchup. Mm-hmm. Appreciate the update there. I see it now. In terms of number 2 team, South Carolina State, as they get it done in terms of that matchup. Let's to our next floor. South Carolina State out of the SEC, top 25 team. Defeat South Carolina State 38-10. Not as bad as some of the scores we see out there in terms of these mismatch with these top 25 teams, including Grambling State losing to the number 1 seed 70-0. Tough one there. So shout out to South Carolina State for getting a bit some can there, as well as Jackson State. Let's go to the 3rd ranked team, North Carolina Central FBS matchup with Old Dominion. They fall 54-6. It's been struggling to score a little bit of late. It'll be interesting to see what North Carolina Central does as they come back and play some FCS programs, Division II. We'll see what that does before conference play. But they lose to the Sun Belt, just like Jackson State, in terms of this particular matchup. Number 4 ranked team was Prairie A&M. They fall, as I said, to UT Rio Grande Valley, 27-21 in that matchup. So Prairie falls to 1-1 on the season, while the Vaqueros improved to 2-0 in terms of their matchup. Go on the road and get their first Division I win of the program's history. Shout out to Vaqueros there. At number 5, we had Tennessee State. They were at home. They wanted to measure up to see how they did, at least according to the AD, in terms of the top team in the country. At home, not much of a measure up, if you ask me. They were 1-1, 2-0, 59-3. This score was worse than some of the FBS scores playing FCS HBCU programs, if you think about it. But North Dakota State is ranked number 1 at the top of the FCA poll rankings. and previous year's champion, multi-year champion for those that continue to see how they get it done year after year. Let's go to number 6 in terms of the score. And you have Howard as they travel to Philadelphia. They play Temple. They lose, and they fall to 1-1 in the season after a dramatic win last week on a game-winning field goal against the Florida A&M Rattlers. They play this week, and they lose to Temple 55-7. Temple improves to 1-1 on the season. The final score for the top 7 brings us to Southern, that matchup we just kind of talked about. And Alabama State defeats Southern on the road. Alabama State Hornets not only got the win, but they go on the road. Pretty impressive. As you know about the Bluff, it's always tough to play, no matter what Southern is doing. Southern does fall to 1-2 on the season. Be interesting to see what some of those fans say there. We'll ask Charles in terms of on the ledge segment as we get everybody's talk. Does he include Southern on it, or is it way too fast? As the Alabama State Hornets improve to 1-1. With that being said, start out with you, Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of the top 7 and how you think it may affect the top 7 before we release it in the third segment?
How can you have thoughts when the whole entire top 7 lost yesterday? And 9 times out of 10, were defeated convincingly. So Dr. Cavil, you would know better than me because you've been doing this poll for 20 plus years. Start with a top 10, cut it down to a top 7. Have we ever had a week where everybody took an L? I know we've had weeks when everybody has won, but have we had a week where everybody took an L? Dr. Cavil?
No, I can't remember one everybody took an L. We've had a couple of weeks 4 or 5 years ago, and we get more of them when you have so many matchups against FBS and FCS. But you usually have a top 7 that plays a FCS program or Division II program, gets a 1 and kind of jumps out of the box. So this is the first time on record that I can call every team in the top 7 loses. Great point there.
Yeah. But so what does that mean? We don't know, because especially when you consider the level of competition that all these teams played on yesterday, the more we know, the more we don't know. So the thing is, last week, if you just look at these 7 teams, if you were on the ledge last week, you're still on the ledge. If you were confident in your team last week, you still confident, because to pull out my inner Mike Washington, there is no quantifiable data point from these games this past Saturday.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let me go to you, Mike, and then I'll save you, Charles, to tie it in the nice bow for us. Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of the top 7 scores? Anything stood out to you?
Completely agree. I mean, there's nothing that you could decipher in terms of a discernible data point. All the best that you could do is look at how they played the game and how they lost. South Carolina State, they played competitively. All the other teams, those were big L's with a capital L. So what can you deduce from that? That's the only thing you can take away is how they played the game, how close, how competitive they were, and that even becomes subjective. There's no discernible data point that you really prove them. We all kind of dictated or predicted that they would lose these games, but the thing was, is there any one of these that's a good loss? No, absolutely not. Maybe South Carolina State on a good day, you could say that wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. But other than that, that's about it.
Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, I think actually you can glean something from the losses in terms of a data point. And I'll go to the Jackson State Southern Miss game. Unless you were there, it would be hard to just not look at the score and say L. But Jackson State rushed for 191 yards in that game. I mean, and they really, and that was the first question I asked TC was, did they meet the mark? Did they meet the moment with regards to the physicality of taking it to an FBS team? And he said, absolutely. In terms of just the way they recruit, the USM and Jackson State are roughly recruiting within the same pool. So what I took away from that game was this is still the same physical brand of football that Jackson State is going to bring into the SWAC. Like I said, that was the thing that really jumped out at me was they didn't get the line of scrimmage didn't get pushed backwards. I think today they're going to sit around and talk about the 12 penalties because that game was really in the balance still within the third quarter. It was 17-10 at halftime, and Jackson State was playing behind the chains for the most part in the third quarter, couldn't get any rhythm going whatsoever. USM was able to put a score up, and that kind of was the determinant in the game. About fourth quarter, defense was gassed. USM gets a couple of touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So the score is not indicative, I think, of how hard I thought Jackson State kind of played in that game. Jackson State gave up a special teams touchdown, scoop and score. That was huge in the game. But, you know, one of the things, just like with UAB and Alabama State, I wanted to see the fight back, you know, and Alabama State showed me a lot of fight back in that first game against UAB. Jackson State kind of did the same thing. They showed some fight, got it to halftime where the game was still in balance, and then things kind of unraveled. They unraveled themselves. I think that's one of the things that I was taking a look at. But from a physicality standpoint, they did not back up whatsoever. And then taking a look at Alabama State, that's a big win. P. Richardson Classic, Southern home opener. And I know it doesn't count anything in the standings. And I was chastised, Doc. I was chastised hard yesterday about allowing anybody to get on the ledge in September. I mean, I got almost cussed out about that. So I have to keep that in mind because, you know, the point was.
So they wanted to put them on the ledge?
No, they was like, no, you can't put anybody on the ledge. You can't put anybody on the ledge in September. And this is a coach, you know, halfway cussing me out about that. So I know he's watching.
That don't count. We talking about the fans. We coach. Of course, the coaches say don't be on the ledge. And that's probably absolutely correct. But that's not
won or lost in September.
That doesn't sell the show in regards to the ledge. In fact, we're finna go to the ledge segment right now. With the head coach, a coach, excuse me. They talked about nobody's on the ledge. Charles, I like the fact that you shouted out Jackson State very appropriately because they did put up the most points of any FCS FBS matchups to give you some more framework of what it means in terms of the fight they had in terms of the physicality of the game. They put up 20 points. They were one of the few teams in the FCS that were able to put up multiple touchdowns. Nobody else was able to do that. So to your credit, I like where you made the matchup there. The differential in terms of 18 points in the game, particularly when you talk about some late scores in the fourth quarter, which happens when the team wears down. Another credit goes to California, Texas Southern. While they only put up 3 points, they didn't give up but 35. We talked about South Carolina State out of the SEC, which is obviously always intriguing when you talk about that. And South Carolina State, another top 10. They put up 10 points, scored a touchdown late in that game, but they only held them, only gave up 38 points themselves. So I think you make some valid points when you look at that. But with that being said, are you going to listen to the coach? Are you going to talk to us about who needs to be on the ledge? Or at least tell us who you're hearing. Fans are talking about on the ledge.
I mean, from a fan standpoint, absolutely. The Southern Jaguar fan base is absolutely fighting to get to the ledge. It has not been a good brand of football over the past few weeks in terms of watching Southern. But the caveat is you still really haven't seen Jalen Woods. Their starter. He got knocked out of the game against Mississippi Valley. But overall, I would say that they have been a surprise with regards to I guess their offensive struggles. I think defensively, they played a much better game, at least in the first half against Alabama State yesterday. But that fan base they're not happy right now whatsoever.
Drew, Joshua Sims Sr., is he on the ledge with the Eagles? The way, that win, it looked really good against Southern, may not be looking so good now, and they've only put up 10 points. That was an FCS match against New Hampshire at home. And obviously the FBS matchup, understand that. But they gave up 54 and only scored 6. Are they in the hallway, or are you letting the Eagles get away with it in terms of their fans? Joshua Sims Sr., this is a particular question just for him.
Are you serious? You think that a Eagle fan right now is anywhere near the ledge, they not even in the building right now as far as their mentality is, Dr. Cavil. The Eagles, in their mindset, they're gonna be all right. And I tend to agree with them. Now, if you want to stay east, there are a couple of fan bases with the invitation to the ledge party. Those are going to be Norfolk State fans have their invitation in hand.
Ooh.
Also, how about Hampton fans struggling to get the victory over Elizabeth City? They have an invitation in hand also. And Southern fans, there's a new mandate that Southern fans need to wear steel-toed shoes because they continually shoot themselves in the foot when they're out there on the field. Because if you look at that game yesterday, the blocked field goal was the momentum swing for Alabama State, in addition to the second half turnovers. So if Southern just plays ball, despite the quarterback deficiencies, and not turn the ball over, and you know the rule is every possession should end off of the foot of a kicker. That's either punt, PAT, or kick, punt, field goal, or kickoff. You know, you can't turn the ball over. You can't fumble the ball. You can't throw interceptions. That's what Southern is doing. That's why Southern fans have their invitation in hand also.
Do the Rattlers have an invite?
I need one more data point. But
they have something in hand, though, right?
The Rattlers invitation is in the mail. The question is, have I gone to the mailbox to get it? Because the Rattlers invitation is in the mail. Have they picked it up is the question. Because we'll see after next week Albany whether they pick it up or is it junk mail.
Ooh. Ooh.
Okay. So Mike,
no,
are you putting FAMU Rattlers on the ledge?
Yes, they are in, and if they say they're not, they're in that river in Egypt called denial. No. They are either they won't pick it up at there. You know how they leave mail at your door and you don't pick it up? That's where they are.
But the bill's still there, right?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. The bill still got to get there. It's got to get paid. So you mentioned Southern, and you made it seem like it was sweet and pleasant. Ooh, Southern did. No. 13, 14 penalties, 4 turnovers. Come on. They are on the ledge without question. And let me ask you something. What about Alcorn State? They are 0-2.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's scratch our heads. We started preseason in the year our Lord July, middle of July 2025. Who were the top 2 in the West? Was it Southern and Alcorn? Both are what? On the ledge. On the ledge. They are in the Serengeti on the ledge, not just on the ledge. They are in the Sudan on that ledge. That's where they are. So let's not sugarcoat things.
So wait a second, Doc. So Isaiah Knowles of Albany State gets to see the Rattlers next week?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's the final one. You give a lot of people invitation. That's similar in some ways of Virginia State and Norfolk State.
Fam, you will skip the ledge on that one and go straight to the bottom of the ocean on that one if they lose that game.
They're gonna go to the basement if they don't get it looking good. Shout out to the lab listeners talking about some of these matchups. Who's gonna be 0-3? Ooh-wee. A lot of folks not feeling comfortable. Gave a little update on North Carolina Central. QB has thrown 3 interceptions, 0 touchdowns, and less than 50% completion in the last 2 games to break down North Carolina Central. So I told you, some folks out there do have some concerns. It might be the fans just doing a little heckling of the other team, but you know how that goes. With that being said, let's take our next break, come back on the other 7. We're going to unveil the top 7 in week number 2 to see all this discussion we had. How does it affect the poll rankings? We'll get these gentlemen's thoughts on it after we take this next break.
I got heckled about that ledge. I tell you that.
You know,
for over 30 years, HBCU Image has been more than just an apparel store. We've been a movement, a statement, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically Black colleges and universities legendary. Whether you're a student or a lifelong supporter, our gear lets you wear your HBCU story with confidence and style. Because when you wear HBCU Image, you're not just wearing clothes, you're wearing culture. You're wearing pride. You're wearing purpose. HBCU Image, a Kenny T's company.
Greetings, Panthers. My name is Roland Austin, and I'm one of the directors at the 1876 Athletic Foundation. The 1876 Athletic Foundation was formed to promote the success of all 343 student athletes. Our overall goal is to fund scholarships for all of our student athletes. We ask that you help us in achieving this goal by donating to the 1876 Athletic Foundation via the QR code below or 1876.foundation. Your generous donation will help us continue to assist the needs of all of our Panther athletes. Thanks, and go Panthers.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I'm gonna break this down. Mike might have to get out of here as he's in Atlanta in the airport and has to catch his connection to get back in the air. We have you safe travel. So whenever you need to log out, we certainly understand. Let's get into this top 7 in terms of what that looks like now as we unveil it in week number 2 to see what the programs are doing. Who's in the top 7? Did anybody drop out this week? Let's see what that looks like now. This is last week's final top 7, so we'll see what changes here. We had 3 changeovers last weekend. We'll see what that looks like now. Let's look at the teams dropping out. Southern Jaguars drop out, 1-1 on the season. Tennessee State Tigers are also 1-1. And remember, this is just a data point. It's week to week. This is not an aspirational poll that looks at where you pick teams and where they may have slotted. This is just week to week and how a team performs week over week. And Southern Jaguars should actually be 1-2. With that, Tennessee State drops out also. Receiving votes, though. Let's get into these top 3 that's receiving votes. Delaware State has snuck up into the receiving votes, 1-1 after a big victory yesterday, 135 points. Morgan State, that is 0-2, is in the mix. They still are in that receiving votes and in the 100 after they still can't get it done against Townsend. Close game, back and forth in some ways, but could not find a way to get it done. 129 points. Then we have Norfolk State Spartans with their win. They sneak up into what essentially would be the top 10 spot as they receive votes at 1-1, 121 points. As I remind you, as we get into the top 7, starting with number 7, this is a week-to-week ranking that you see what it looks like. Not aspirational, where we think teams are going to at number
how many times you gonna throw that little disclaimer out there?
I might do it after every.
Cause folks will invite you to that tailgate, wine and dine you, then pull you aside about being on the edge and what it ranked in.
Hey, even worse, Charles, when you get phone calls from coaches that say y'all disrespected us with the poll, how you gonna get that team? They played the garbage team, and we did this, and I got coaches calling me politicking for votes, man.
I tell you what's the fans are worse. They invite you to their tent, give you a piece of chicken, give you a little beverage to drink, get you all comfortable. Then they say, "Why you have us here?" And then they want to ask why, and then they give you justifications for why they should have. You fooling chicken. You don't feel like talking about that at that moment. I'm on some Popeye's chicken. I don't want to talk about that.
Hey, Red Cup was so welcoming until.
Hey, these be your own fans. These be your own fans. The people that say they love you. Let's get into number 7. Great stuff. Great stuff. We love it. That's why we bring it to you every week. Keep the dialogue going to see what your thoughts on the top 7. Let's go to number 7. Number 7 is the Howard Bison. As they stay in the poll, they're 1-1. They do fall a spot from 6 last weekend, but they stay in the top 7. Let's go to number 6. That's Howard Bison out of the MEAC. At number 6, we have none other than the Prairie View A&M Panthers. They fall 2 spots after jumping all the way up to 4. Some people said not so fast. Well, they fall right back down to number 6 as they are 1-1 on the season, 159 points. Let's go to number 5. This will be a new entrance in terms of the top 7 this week. Alabama A&M Bulldogs improved to 1-1. They have 181 points. They were not ranked as they jump into the mix. Let's go to number 4 on the ranking this week. North Carolina Central Eagles. They fall a spot. They are 1-2. They still receive one first place vote. They did lose one, but they're in the mix. They are 190 points. At number 3, they were number 3 last week. At Alabama State Hornets, 1-1. 2 first place votes, 194 points. They were not ranked last week, but they jumped into the top 7 all the way up to number 3. They had a bigger climb coming out of the poll than Prairie View did last week, based on what they've done over the last couple of weeks. We'll see what this means. At number 2, you have none other than South Carolina State Bulldogs. They remain at number 2 spot, 1-1. They do grab a first place vote to tighten things up in terms of the number 1 spot, which you obviously know is Jackson State. But South Carolina State, 217 points. As I said, number 1 is the remaining champion in terms of Jackson State Tigers at 1-1. 5 first place votes. As I said, they did lose one, 219 points, but Jackson State remains number 1. After week number 2, they go back to last season. That's 8 straight sitting at the top of the poll rankings. It'll be interesting as they continue to move. With that being said, Mike had to jump off, so I'm going to go ahead and go with you, Charles, in terms of the top 7. What are your thoughts there?
Alabama A&M, that was pretty impressive yesterday. Cornelius Brown, 260 in the air, another 70 yards on the ground. So that Magic City Classic is kind of shaping up because Andrew Body, I think he's gone out and for a couple of weeks now. Southern did a good job, I think, of corralling him a little bit from a running perspective yesterday, but he got it done with his arm. So shout out to Alabama State and Alabama A&M. Alabama stand up. So I think those are a couple of teams that are going to have to keep your eye on going forward. Jackson State, with regards to their passing offense, they need to get things on track a little bit. And as you heard TC say in the opening there, penalties have been a bugaboo for the Jackson State Tigers over the past couple of weeks. We'll see over the next few weeks if that team starts to dial that back in, because that was something that really hampered them yesterday against USC.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of the top 7 in the major division for week number 2?
I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with this, especially when you consider the futility that the teams who were previously in the top 7 had this week. But I will say this: if Alabama State would have been in the poll, like I said they should have been in the poll last week, your top 7 wouldn't have went 0-4 Dr. Cavil last week. Alabama State should have already been there. That's number 1. And then number 2, how the hell is Norfolk State receiving votes, Dr. Cavil? Did whoever got them down there, did they actually understand what happened overtime against the D2? And you receiving votes? I mean, the W, but damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Henry Frazier III had him on the road, but if just that, if they find a way to get the win, so maybe just because everybody else is doing more atrocious than they are, maybe that's kind of the framework, until we get into it and get more data points, things shake out the way they shake out. But I think you made points.
And you just hit it on the point, Dr. Cavil. We need data points, that's why Black College Sports Network don't do anything until after the 4th game, because it's hard to, especially the extreme ups and downs that you have during this time of the year with teams playing Division 2s, looking like superstars, and then teams playing against FBSs looking like they never played football before, and you got losses, but do we consider moral victories? Jackson State rush for 200 yards. We gonna give you some points on that, but then you have a Grambling who goes up to Ohio State and lays a goose egg. So how do you evaluate stuff like that, Dr. Cavil, this time of the year?
You just know that the variability of what you're doing is wide, and as a statistician, as you know, you can appreciate that framework. And that's why I do make the point it's week to week, because at the earliest season, your variability of week to week is just going to be large because it's so many more challenges to really see what teams looks like. So you kind of start where you are and you throw it up in the jumbo pot and you just mix it up and you let it come out what it is. and you tell everybody it's a week-to-week poll. Stay tuned because it will likely change in terms of the variability. You still see a little bit of settlement when you talk about maybe the top teams in terms of where they are based on what they look like. But still then you can have some mix. And even later in the season, you get settlement with the top teams kind of solidifying themselves. They may shift just a little bit, but it's the bottom part of your poll that is always twisting and turning, as well as those teams that are receiving votes, because they kind of create the mix where they have the up and down, where they win, lose, or win two, lose two, lose three, win two. And you kind of stay around that hovering 500 mark, maybe just outside of it. But great points. I do want to share Mike. He did say he had to jump off. We kind of gave you that thoughts as we wish him safe travels. He said, got to run, but Delaware State should be in the top 7, my man. Point after watching them in week 2. Alabama A&M should be there. We did have him there, so he wanted to make sure he agreed with that. He said Alabama State, that team he totally agrees in terms of being in the top 7. So those are some final thoughts in terms of Mike, as he had to make sure he got it in there, and he wants to see Delaware State. They are just outside of it. Hell, they had number 8. See, piggy. But it is what it is. But all of y'all seriously make good points in terms of that. Lab listeners, tell us what you think on the top 7. What does your top 7 look like? How does it compare? And shout out to Drew. One thing I do like what you and Brian do in terms of Brian and AD on the sports wrap is you also add in a strength of schedule component, which kind of differentiates the poll, which I think is important that you always have to remind folks, and I'm going to help and remind them as well. When you all look at your poll, it's about strength and how you take data points, particularly from previous seasons, but more importantly, after 4 weeks of play, and using other folks' ranking metrics as it goes into a computer algorithm that spits out strength of schedules, which gives you probably a little help for those that want to look at games and select framework. Probably a little more in terms of what that looks like versus the human, which creates a excitement just in terms of those people voting, watching games and what they see with their eyesight. And they have probably some bias based on region, based on conference affiliation, maybe believing one conference is stronger than the other. So those are some things that you all necessarily don't have when you have a strength calculation. And as Brian would say, it would be remiss if we don't talk about that, because it's becoming more popular in terms of betting. ESPN bets and other betting mergers in terms of plus rankings. Strength and schedule would help you a little more do some of the analysis you do for those that care to participate. Obviously, we don't solicit that or encourage that, but it is out there, and we need to make sure we make it as responsible as possible to give you as much information as necessary to help you do what you need to do. With that, let's take our last break. We'll come back in this last segment, close it out. But as we do that, we're going to move to week 3 for the major division and get these two gentlemen thoughts on what are the big matchups. What are some games to have your eye on? Where are you in terms of the landscape as we move forward? I have a couple in mind. I want to see where these gentlemen go, and then I'll share mine. With that, let's take our last break, come back on the other side, and do just that.
At AutoMasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
ESPN Events presents Red Lobster Band of the Year, a title reserved for elite HBCU marching bands. A season-long competition that culminates in Atlanta on Friday, December 12th. Drum majors, percussion, drill, auxiliaries, musicality. All aspects will be examined by the toughest judges in the world of college bands. 4 will qualify for the big stage, where national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for rankings updates throughout the season. And join us in Atlanta on December 12th. For event and ticket information, visit bandoftheyear.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's talk about some of these games for next week and see where you all want to go. I'm going to list them out, and then you tell me where you're going with your watching eyes or what's on your mind. Let's start with the SWAC. We have Tuskegee at Jackson. Big classic matchup there. When you talk about that game, I will actually be in Jackson for that on Friday at 1 o'clock on Jackson State University's campus. We're taking the HBCU lecture series on the road. You saw us do it at Texas Southern, where we brought in a lot of the leadership. We did a 2-day lecture series where we had the AD. We had the AD, Dr. Charles McCullum from the SWAC. We had the AD, Dr. Anthony Holloman from the SIEC on Thursday, and then we brought a lot of the ADs into the mix. Well, we're going there, and we're bringing it to our first lecture series on the road to the AD of the year. Ashley Robinson started to put the doctor on it, trying to get him to get into a doctor program. We'll see how that looks and what that does. Maybe once Charles trying to give him some selling points as he's in the dissertation phase. If I don't scare him to death, maybe he'll help me get Ashley in the program. But we'll talk a little bit about that later as Charles continues to do the work. But I will be in Jackson. So me and Johnny T's on first name basis. So you know where I'll be after I put in the work and before I get to see the game on Saturday. Something tells me I might visit Johnny's. As I said, we're on first name basis. Might find a way to get there twice as nice as we'll find a way to do it maybe Friday and Saturday if Charles is so nice to me and help me in terms of my arrangements to make that happen. And the other great folks in Jackson, Mississippi. With that being said, Alabama A&M, Tennessee State, I-65 series, if you would. This will be fascinating in terms of how Alabama A&M is playing. Tennessee State, they did play the national champs. A lot of people want some credit for that, but I just put out the score. It wasn't pretty, but they'll get a chance to redeem themselves. They got the win over North Carolina A&T that first weekend based on a block. So it'll be interesting to see what this looks like. This is the 4-year series, so this is the first one. It is in Nashville as it goes to Huntsville next year. So the Bulldogs go on the road to Nashville along with the fans. It'll be interesting as they just travel up the interstate. Great matchup. Intriguing to see what that looks like. Alcorn State, it'll be a challenge to see them get right in this week, but they could play better. We'll see what that looks like as they face Mississippi State. They got a big win at home in terms of their matchup. So over a top 25 team in terms of Arizona State. Then you have Miles and Alabama State. Can Alabama State not look past Miles in terms of that matchup? Miles is struggling. Drew said they would. So I don't think it'll be a problem there. One of the things we'll just want to see how big of that matchup is. Then we have a MEAC Challenge continuation game. Bethune is on the road at South Carolina State in terms of Orangeburg, and we see how the Bulldogs are playing. Can Wildcats find a way to get a win for the SWAC? It hasn't been done thus far. We'll see what that looks like. Prairie View tries to bounce back, but they got to step up to do it against FBS programs, so that's always a chance to have tough chance. But they're back in Houston this time against the Rice Owls. Then you have Lincoln, California, as they start their HBCU series. They started off in Arkansas Pine Bluff. Kentucky State travels to Grambling as they come off a loss. They're 1-1 on the season. Grambling 1-1 as well. Be interesting to see, can Grambling continue to do what they did like they started off the season against Langston? Or will Kentucky State have that big surprise that they did a couple of years ago? I won't say the name because that program has totally changed in terms of what it looks like there. But Charles knows who I'm talking about. Mississippi Valley State, Southeastern Louisiana. another Southland matchup. Can Mississippi Valley continue to push it forward and show that they're taking the next step? This one is interesting to me. Lamar at Texas Southern, Albany State at FAMU, and Southern at Fresno close things out. Don't want to slide by it as Albany goes to FAMU. Charles kind of asked a little bit before the show. So we'll start with the SWAC. Charles, what are your thoughts on their matchup? Which one or two stands out to you?
One or two that stands out to me, I think that you mentioned the I-65 series, Alabama A&M at Tennessee State. That one is very intriguing in terms of seeing what can Cornelius Brown do on back-to-back weekends against an out-of-conference foe. The other one, I alluded to it earlier, Isaiah Knowles taking on FAMU. When you take a look at what he did this past week, 6 touchdowns and an interception, is he this year's version of what David Wright was at Clark last year in terms of what he's able to get done? So it'll be very interesting to see Albany State versus FAMU. And then the other one, this a little bit of a surprise that kind of intrigues me, but I want to see who Bethune-Cookman is going to South Carolina State. I think that's a very intriguing matchup. We talk about the strength of the SWAC East. Bethune-Cookman has a huge opportunity to kind of make a statement in that game against SC.
Good point. Good point. I like the way you think. You did bury the lead and not talking about Quinn Gray coming home.
You're right. That Quinn Gray is coming home. That's a very
I like that you stuck with the college athletes. That's important. That's what we're out here sharing off. But something about that Quinn Gray as the head coach of Albany State Golden Rams going home to where he had some great plays and actions in terms of his career as a Rattler. With that being said, let's go to a Rattler himself as well as a Golden Tiger. Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of some of these SWAC matchups? What's on your mind?
Are we saying SWAC or are we going over?
Yeah, we're going to SWAC, and then I'm going to break down the MEAC and tie in the CIAA. It's an interesting conference matchup. We'll talk about that one as well.
Well, staying SWAC only, Dr. Cavil, there are 5 what I call get off the mat games, get right games, as you have 5 SWAC opponents playing Division II opponents on Saturday. So this is an opportunity for some of those. We have coined the phrase, we need to trademark it for the ledge, but there are 5 fan bases who can postpone their trip to the ledge for with these get off the mat games, as I like to call them. But outside of those games, Dr. Cavil, the one that really intrigues me level on level is going to be Alcorn State and Mississippi Valley State. It was the Mississippi Valley State team that we saw against Southern, a Mississippi Valley State that's going to get over the hump, and the team that we need to fear in the SWAC. And on the flip side, is Alcorn State going to get it right in this battle of the state of Mississippi, or is Alcorn loses to Mississippi Valley? Alcorn is officially off the ledge and in the pool, in the water.
I agree with you. They all.
I think you got Mississippi. Alcorn taking on Mississippi State.
Oh,
yeah, but they taking Valley later.
Oh, well, then cancel that. Cancel all that. Cancel everything I just said about that game. Then cancel that whole. Yeah, because Valley plays Southeast Louisiana. So we're gonna save that one for right now. So I'm just gonna focus on those 5 get off the mat games, Dr. Cavil, and let's see if they come in. And one other thing, Jackson State, Tuskegee, Charles.
Yo,
who would have thunk it that after 2 weeks of football, Tuskegee would be leading Alabama State when it comes to attendance?
Wow, that's impressive.
Tuskegee in their 2 games, obviously one at neutral site, one is at home, but they've drawn over 15K for both of their games.
Well, they need to bring that 15K to Jackson this weekend. I was a little disappointed.
You might get 8 to 10 of them, seriously.
Yeah.
You might get 8 to 10 of those who get on the road and head to Mississippi.
Yeah, WC Gordon Classic this upcoming weekend in Jackson with and Tuskegee has a tremendous traveling fan base, so it'll be very interesting to see kind of what that attendance would be this upcoming weekend. And they are very passionate about Tuskegee, so I'm looking forward to that game.
Well, y'all showed that Tuskegee boost based on that game 1 against Hampton.
Point taken.
Good stuff. Let's go to the MEAC and talk about some of these get-right games. We'll start off with them. We have Morehouse at Howard. That's neutral site game. It is MetLife Stadium, big-time game in terms of the atmosphere in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So Drew will be catching a charter flight, I believe, in terms of trying to take care of business there.
Actually gave up my flight on the charter to fly commercial.
Oh, good for you. Good
For you. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we had to get
love to other folks so they can make sure they have.
We had to get some students on, so I gave up my seat and I flew and I'm flying commercial. One of a couple people are flying commercial up there.
Good stuff. The next one to get right is the Bowie State against Delaware State. Does Delaware State continue to roll? Get some energy and thought there. And then the North Carolina Central, we talked about them. This is certainly, you think, a get right game as Fayetteville State goes to North Carolina Central. In-state foes getting down for that matchup. We have the Norfolk State at Rutgers, a tough one you would imagine in terms of the Spartans going on the road in the Big Ten country. You have Morgan State, Toledo, a team, Morgan State, scoring-wise, look good, pretty solid defensively, but haven't been able to crack it in terms of getting a win column. So be interesting to see what they do against the Rockets of Toledo. We already broke down that Bethune-Cookman, South Carolina State matchup from the MEAC side, from the SWAC side, looking at MEAC. So we don't have to redo that, but I want to put it back out there. That's one to be interesting. Starting with you, Drew, where are you going in terms of this matchup? These matchups in the MEAC.
Obviously, I can only comment so much on the Howard Morehouse game because of my position. But you've got two teams who've kind of struggled out of the gate, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that game and which team is going to come out ahead. I mean, obviously, I'm not stupid. We know Howard is favored in that game. So question is, can Morehouse do what they need to do to remain competitive in that game? Delaware State, Bowie State coming off two impressive victories by both schools. So this one is going to be interesting. Obviously, Delaware State should win this game by multiple scores, but can Bowie stay in, and will Bowie become a player in the CIAA again and be able to compete with those Virginia schools that have dominated the last couple of years? And
great point.
You know, Toledo, Morgan State, can we get over the hump? And for Morgan State, I need you to watch out for 57. That's my nephew, by the way, who plays for Toledo. So I just want to make sure I throw that in.
Good job. Way to get it in there.
Yeah, I got it. Hope y'all can't stop my nephew. He needs some good film because this is his last year. So yeah, we're gonna leave right there. And Fayetteville State's been struggling. I definitely expect Central to be able to get right against Fayetteville State. So
good stuff. Good stuff. Charles, your thoughts in terms of the MEAC matchup?
Yeah, I think the one that I'm going to pay attention to in this attendance with regards to Howard and Morehouse. I mean, have HBCUs kind of found this honey spot going to the Northeast?
31 last year.
Yeah, great attendance in New York, New Jersey last year. Boston, same thing this year. Morehouse alumni, you guys are turning out for these games. So I dig that. That's pretty cool. But I think to touch on what AD was talking about with Bowie State and Delaware State, it'll be very interesting to see, can Delaware State kind of keep the momentum going from the good vibes of getting a win this past week.
Last one we'll talk about is the Independents. We talked about one because it's in a matchup that features a SWAC team. As we said, that series, I-65 is what they'll be traveling. But let's move into another one that's unique, which is a conference game in terms of Hampton at North Carolina A&T. Many people said that they pointed early to the Tennessee State game was the game that A&T needed to get a win. Some people pointed to this based on how Hampton played over the first week against Jackson State. A lot of people were saying nope. But then we just saw Hampton against Elizabeth City State. So I think there's maybe a little more question in terms of that matchup. So there becomes a bit of intrigue. The game being in Greensboro certainly makes things interesting, maybe to you all. But I believe in a lot of ways, this probably is the game that Aggies want to get in terms of sure they can get a win on the season. It gets a little more difficult after that. And it's a chance to get a conference win, which they haven't done since they joined the CAA, the Colonial Athletics Association, now known as the Coastal Athletic Association. Charles?
Yeah, that's very intriguing. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of getting a conference win, getting a win at home. That would be huge for North Carolina A&T. I have to be honest, that Elizabeth City State Hampton score, it turned my head. I'm gonna have to dig into it a little bit more today to kind of see what happened within that game. But it brings up not just North Carolina A&T, but just an intriguing matchup now that I look at Johnson C. Smith going to Elizabeth City State this upcoming weekend. So I know we'll get to that, but it just triggered all of that when I kind of look back at that Hampton score. So huge opportunity for the Aggies this weekend.
I'm glad you're doing a little sharing and pubbing for the Tuesday show as we give all the love to the mid-majors. We certainly will have that as a feature game of the week. Be interesting to see what that looks like as we talk about that. Tease it out a little bit Tuesday, but certainly go into it Thursday when we really get into our matchups for week number 3 for the major division and week number 2 for the mid-major division. Different worlds in terms of scheduling. I know Brian has a thing about that, but it is what it is. We just going to keep up and do it because we got the specialists in terms of the Division 2, along with another one out there, Stephen Gaither. We're going to have to find a way to bring him in shortly as things start to lather up, particularly as we get to the final game in a lot of ways to see who's going to wear the crown, if you would, between the CIAA and SIAC. With that being said, Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of this Hampton and North Carolina A&T matchup?
This is what I don't want to happen with this matchup, Dr. Cavil.
Yeah,
I don't want this game to be the only win that either one of these teams get in the conference, because obviously somebody has to win this game, somebody has to lose this game on Saturday. But if it is going to be the only win, you have to hope A&T gets it, because the path might be a little bit easier for Hampton to get another dub versus A&T possibly getting another dub. But A&T is improved from the A&T that we've seen the last couple of years. So I don't expect this to be the only win for both of these teams, but it's always intriguing. And this may be the first time since they have left Big South and the CAA where these two teams have one or the other has not played them the other one for homecoming.
Good stuff. Good points. Good stuff. Well, that'll do it for us today. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Live. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson, Charles Bishop, and A.D. Drew. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Live with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Checking us out. We appreciate all the lab listeners, all the dialogue out there, giving us the love and supporting us. I'll be on the road next week again. We will have the first of four, I should say, continuation of the HBCU lecture series. This one is in Jackson State, Jackson, Mississippi, if you would. 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. We'll be there, and we'll give you some updates of what that looks like. Then we end up going to Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia in October. And then in November, we come back to the SWAT. We'll be in Montgomery, Alabama. Then we close things off in Atlanta at the Celebration Bowl. With that being said, thank you for all those that help support us doing the HBCU lecture series. We'll see what we can do and see if we can grow that. With that being said, we look forward to next week as we discuss the latest in the news. We will unveil the Division II mid-major and NIA programs in terms of the mid-major HBCU's top 7 rankings on Tuesday. So look forward to getting you that information. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Facebook, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. That's Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. Follow me, DrKenyattaCavil on Threads, Facebook, and Instagram. Make sure you check out Sports Wrap tonight with Brian and A.D. Drew as they break it down and provide you a longer segment to really get into some discussion in terms of what's going on in the HBCU world. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Drew?
Lecture.
You just called it HBCU Sports Pedagogy. Dismissed.
Travel light.